What if, without realizing it, you signed away more than just your marriage? When you're exhausted, emotionally drained, and just want it all to be over, that's when the most dangerous mistakes happen. Divorce isn't just about dividing assets or signing legal documents. It's a storm of grief, relief, fear, and fatigue. And when you're tired, truly tired, you stop fighting for what you deserve. You tell yourself you'll figure it out later. You tell your lawyer, I don't care anymore, I just want this done. But later comes faster than you think, and by then the damage is already done. The truth is, there are critical decisions being made during a divorce that will shape your next decade. Where you live, what you own, what kind of life you get to rebuild. But when you're overwhelmed, it's easy to overlook things that seem small, but come back to haunt you. Maybe it's a hidden bank account you forgot to ask about. Maybe it's the custody clause you didn't understand. Maybe it's a future retirement plan that slipped through your fingers because you just didn't have the energy to care anymore. This video isn't here to scare you. It's here to protect you. Because there are patterns, 7 in particular, that keep showing up in divorce after divorce. Not because women aren't smart, but because they're human. Because exhaustion, fear, and the pressure to move on make it hard to think clearly. And those 7 sections, they could mean the difference between rebuilding your life with strength or stumbling through years of regret. Stay with me until the end. You don't need to know every law or every legal loophole, but you do need to know where the danger is hiding, especially when you're too tired to see it. Let's begin. One of the most common and costly mistakes women make during divorce happens in the very beginning, often without even realizing it. They leave the house, walk away from shared accounts, or agree to temporary financial arrangements without securing access to cash or legal protection. Why? Because they're exhausted, because they want to avoid more conflict, because someone said, don't worry, we'll work it out. But here's the hard truth. The minute you step away without financial safeguards in place, you lose leverage. And once it's gone, it's nearly impossible to get back. Picture this. You're emotionally worn out, living on a friend's couch or staying at a hotel, while your ex still has access to the joint checking account, the mortgage is in his name, and the credit cards suddenly stop working. You're trying to breathe, trying to focus on healing, but every day is a new financial crisis. Suddenly, you're scrambling to pay for groceries, legal fees, or even gas for your car. You didn't plan for this. You didn't think you had to. Some women assume things will be fair because their ex was never the type to be vindictive. But divorce can bring out a side of people you've never seen. And if you give up financial access too soon, whether it's giving up control of accounts, moving out without a written agreement, or trusting verbal promises, you're handing over power in the one moment you need it most. So before you sign anything, before you walk away, before you let exhaustion talk you into silence, ask yourself this: do I have access to money? Can I pay my attorney? Do I know where all the accounts are and how to track them? Because if the answer is no, then you're not ready to move forward. Not yet. You don't need to be a financial expert. You just need to protect your right to stay afloat. Because once the paperwork starts moving, nobody's going to pause and ask if you're okay. You have to be your own advocate. And that starts with making sure you can survive on your own terms. In the middle of a divorce, when emotions are high and everyone's raw, the last thing most women want is another fight, especially about the kids. So they compromise. They agree to custody schedules they're not comfortable with, or give up weekends, holidays, or major decision-making rights just to avoid more conflict. It feels like the mature thing to do, like the peaceful path forward. But what feels like peace in the moment can turn into quiet heartbreak later. Here's what no one tells you. Custody agreements are hard to change once they're locked in. That temporary schedule you agreed to out of fatigue, it can quickly become the foundation of your child's entire routine. Judges don't like instability. So once something's in writing, it becomes the new normal. If you later realize it's not working, you'll face an uphill legal battle to fix it. And even if you succeed, the emotional toll it takes on you and your children can be massive. You might tell yourself, it's okay, I'll make it work, or he won't actually take all the days he's asking for. But what if he does? What if you suddenly find yourself missing birthdays, missing school pickups, missing the daily moments you thought were yours, and all because, in a moment of emotional survival, You just couldn't take one more argument. The truth is, the custody agreement isn't just about logistics, it's about presence. It's about who gets to shape your child's memories, their habits, their emotional safety. So if you're sitting at that table feeling tempted to say yes just to end the tension, pause. Ask yourself, will I be okay living with this decision a year from now, 5 years from now? Will my child? Because you're not just giving up time, you're giving up influence. You're giving up your voice in their world. And once it's gone, it's not easily reclaimed. You don't have to fight for everything, but you do have to fight for what matters, and nothing matters more than showing up for your child the way you were always meant to. It's a story that plays out more often than most people realize. A woman, overwhelmed and emotionally drained, decides to take the amicable route. Her ex promises to be fair, to split things equally, to do what's right. He says lawyers will only stir things up, that it's better if they just handle it themselves. And because she's tired and still clinging to the idea of keeping things civil, she agreed. At first, it feels like a relief. No arguments, no courtroom drama, just two adults figuring things out. But slowly, things start to shift. That promise to share everything, turns out it only applies to the parts he wants to share. That joint investment account, it wasn't really joint. That pension plan you assumed you'd get a portion of, suddenly off the table. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. The paperwork's already in motion and you're playing catch up. The truth is, fairness during divorce is not about intentions, it's about protections. You can't enforce a promise that was never put in writing. You can't argue for assets you never knew existed because you didn't have full financial disclosure. And you can't count on doing what's right to hold up in court if things go sideways. And this doesn't mean every man is out to deceive, but even good people protect their own interests when things fall apart. And without a legal safety net, you're the one left exposed. Divorce is a legal process, not just an emotional one. And the law doesn't care how nice the conversation felt. It only cares what's documented. So before you say, he would never do that to me, take a breath, get everything in writing, insist on full financial transparency, let a lawyer look things over. Not because you're being difficult, but because you're being smart, because trust is powerful, but it's not a legal strategy. When you're in survival mode, juggling emotions, kids, and trying to just get through each day, it's easy to skim over the financial stuff. You're tired, you're overwhelmed, and honestly, numbers might be the last thing you want to think about. So when your ex hands over a few bank statements or tells you that's everything, it's tempting to just believe him, to assume it's accurate, to avoid pushing too hard because you don't want to seem greedy or distrustful. But this is where so many women unknowingly set themselves up for long-term regret. Because hidden finances are one of the most common traps in divorce, and they're rarely obvious. It's not just about stashing cash in a secret account. It's the deferred bonuses, the stocks in his company's name, the business assets he undervalued, or the retirement accounts you didn't even know existed. It's the debt you didn't create but might still be responsible for. And if you don't demand full financial disclosure with proper documentation, you might walk away with far less than you're entitled to. Worse yet, once the agreement is signed, it's incredibly difficult to go back and challenge it. Courts aren't always sympathetic if you failed to uncover assets beforehand. And your future, your stability, your retirement, your ability to support your children depends on what you walk away with now. But this isn't about being suspicious, it's about being prepared. Divorce isn't just the end of a relationship, it's a financial split, and you deserve to leave with your fair share. That means asking questions. That means hiring a forensic accountant if necessary. That means not letting fatigue, fear, or politeness keep you from protecting your future. Because what you miss now won't just affect next month's bills, it could impact your next 20 years. So slow down, get clear, and don't sign anything until every number, every account, every asset is fully visible. You only get one shot at this. Make it count. When you're emotionally drained and desperate for peace, agreeing to joint custody can feel like the simplest way out. He says he wants to be involved. You don't want to seem difficult. And maybe deep down, you hope that a shared arrangement will keep things stable for the kids. So you nod, you agree, you sign, because at that moment, the idea of conflict feels worse than compromise. But what many women don't realize until it's far too late is that custody isn't just about time, it's about power. Joint custody doesn't always mean equal parenting. In practice, it can lead to endless negotiations about where your child goes to school, what doctor they see, whether they can go on a trip, or even what therapist they're allowed to visit. It means every big decision could turn into a standoff. And if you can't agree, guess what? You might end up back in court, drained all over again. And if he's the type who wants control, not co-parenting, joint custody becomes his leverage. Suddenly, he's questioning your parenting, showing up late, ignoring boundaries, using the agreement not as a way to be involved, but as a tool to stay in your life on his terms. And once it's in writing, your options become painfully limited. Even if he's not malicious, joint custody can still get complicated fast. Kids' needs evolve, schedules change, what seemed fair in year 1 may not work in year 3, and modifying custody terms is often a costly uphill battle. That's why before you agree to anything, you need to slow down and really think about what joint custody will look like in the real world, not just the ideal version on paper. Can you communicate with him effectively? Does he truly prioritize the kid's well-being, or does he pick fights when he doesn't get his way? Are you prepared for the emotional toll of constant coordination? This isn't about keeping him out. It's about creating a structure that works for you and the kids long term. Because once that custody agreement is signed, it shapes your life for years to come. And changing it isn't as easy as just asking, so don't agree to joint custody just to get it over with. Get clear, get legal advice, and make sure you understand exactly what you're signing up for. Your peace and your kids' future depend on it. In the middle of a divorce, it's easy to believe that fairness is built into the process, that the courts will step in if something isn't right, that the law will protect you simply because you're being reasonable, honest, and doing what's best for the kids. But this is one of the most dangerous assumptions a woman can make, especially when she's tired, vulnerable, and trying to hold it all together. The truth? The legal system isn't designed to protect your emotions, your sacrifices, or even your good intentions. It's designed to enforce agreements, and those agreements, once signed, are binding, even if they're unfair. Judges don't always have the full picture. They aren't there to advocate for you. They're there to interpret paperwork. And if you don't fight for what's fair before the ink dries, you may never get another chance. Too many women assume that because they were the primary caregiver, they'll automatically keep custody, or that because they supported their husband's career, they'll be compensated in this settlement. But unless those contributions are documented, argued for, and legally protected, they often go unrecognized. The court doesn't just know the truth, it only sees what's been presented and how well it's been backed up. This is where fatigue becomes dangerous. When you're exhausted, it's tempting to skip the legal prep, settle too quickly, or trust that the system will sort it out. But if your ex has a more aggressive attorney, more time, or more money to fight, he can easily outmaneuver you, not because he's right, but because he's playing hard. That's why having strong legal support isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. You need someone who will advocate for you, who will dig into the numbers, challenge vague agreements, and make sure you're not being rushed into something permanent just because you're emotionally worn down. Because once it's signed, there's no undo button. So no, the system won't save you, but the right preparation will. And the difference between a painful, one-sided divorce and a fair, secure future often comes down to whether you assumed you'd be protected or made sure you were. When you're knee-deep in paperwork, negotiations, and emotional exhaustion, it's easy to get tunnel vision. You just want it to be over. You want the arguing to stop, the uncertainty to end, and your life back. But in that desperation to cross the finish line, many women forget something critical. Divorce isn't the end. It's the beginning of a completely new chapter. And if you haven't planned for that chapter, it can hit like a second wave of devastation. Once the divorce is finalized, reality sets in fast. Suddenly, you're not just dealing with legal issues, you're managing a whole new life. Maybe your income has dropped, your home life has changed, you're juggling kids, work, bills, and emotions you didn't even realize you'd buried during the chaos. And without a clear plan, that fresh start can feel more like free fall. So many women focus on surviving the divorce that they don't think about what comes next. They settle for support payments without running the math. They take on assets they can't afford to maintain. They underestimate how lonely or unstable the weeks after court will feel. And they forget to ask the most important question of all: what kind of life do I want to build from here? Divorce may be painful, but it also creates an opportunity, a chance to rebuild your life with more clarity, purpose, and freedom than you had before. But you can't seize that opportunity if you're left scrambling. Start by imagining the life you want a year from now. Where do you live? How do your days look? What kind of emotional, financial, and social support do you need to get there? Then make sure your divorce agreement actually supports that future, not just the present moment. If you need career help, ask for it. If you need more time with the kids, fight for it. If you need space to rebuild emotionally, don't rush into obligations that will weigh you down, because what you agree to now will either empower your next chapter or quietly trap you in the fallout of the last one. So before you sign that final document, take a breath, look past the divorce, and ask yourself, is this setting me up to truly live or just to survive? The difference matters more than you think. Divorce isn't just a legal process. It's an emotional crossroads, and when you're tired, vulnerable, or just desperate for peace, it's tempting to make fast decisions just to make the pain stop. But what seems like relief in the moment can turn into regret that lasts for years. Every woman walking through divorce deserves to feel safe, seen, and protected, but that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by slowing down, asking the hard questions, and refusing to sign away your future just to end today's conflict. The traps we've talked about, rushing to settle, underestimating finances, trusting verbal promises, overlooking custody language, assuming the system will protect you, and forgetting to plan for life after, these aren't just mistakes. These are lessons learned the hard way by women who didn't know what was coming until it was too late. But now you do. You know that clarity matters more than comfort, that boundaries matter more than politeness, and that your future depends on how strong you're willing to stand, even when you're exhausted. This process is hard, yes, but so are you. And you're not here to just survive divorce. You're here to rebuild your life on your terms. So before you sign anything, before you say, I just want it over, pause. Think. Ask yourself if this decision honors the woman you're becoming, not just the one who's hurting now. Because she deserves more than a rushed ending. She deserves a strong beginning. And if this video helped you feel even 1% more prepared, more informed, or less alone, let us know in the comments. Share what resonated, because your voice might be the exact one another woman needs to hear before she makes the biggest decision of her life. Thanks for watching, stay strong, and we'll see you in the next one.